So the Washington Commanders are going into Ford Field against the Detroit Lions at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Saturday night. This is a game that's going to be a great game. I think this might be the best game in the divisional outside of the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens, which we will get to that in another video. But this game right here with the young star in Jayden Daniels and the great quarterback in Jared Goff. Yes, I said great because at the end of the day, I think he's a great quarterback. Now, the Washington Commanders are coming in at 12-5, 5-3 away, and the Detroit Lions are coming in at 15-2 and 7-2 at home. So they're going to host the Washington Commanders, and 73% of, according to ESPN Analytics, 73% says that the Detroit Lions are going to beat the Washington Commanders. Now, this is going to be a good QB matchup, as we know, because we're going to see Jayden Daniels, where he had like 3,500 yards on the regular season, and Jared Goff, 4,600 yards passing this season with 37 touchdowns and 12 interceptions for Jared Goff and 25 touchdowns and 9 interceptions for Jayden Daniels. Rushing is going to be a big thing here for Jayden Daniels. He almost had 1,000 yards rushing, but he only had 891. But to me, the Detroit Lions are coming off of a bye week, having home field advantage. Detroit is being consistent now of hosting playoff games. We've seen it last year with the Los Angeles Rams. In my personal opinion, I'm going to say this game is tough to really call. People are really not giving the Washington Commanders a chance, where you have a guy in Dan Quinn that has won a Super Bowl with the Legion of Boom in Seattle and went to the Atlanta Falcons, went to the Atlanta Falcons as a head coach and lost the Super Bowl to the New England Patriots, which is one of the worst meltdowns of all time. But I think Dan Quinn actually learned from that. And bringing in Bobby Wagner for this defense for the Commanders versus this high power Detroit Lions offense is going to be very scary on how much of a challenge that Dan Quinn is going to have against this offense. Now, you know, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery is coming back too, just to let you know he will be clear to play in this divisional game. So now the Washington Commanders defense they have to worry about both running backs, which is Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. But Jahmyr Gibbs, 1,412 yards with 16 touchdowns on 250 carries. I mean, Jayden Daniels, even though he's the leading rusher for the team, but the rushing game is going to be a big factor for both quarterbacks and both receivers. They got some star-studded receivers over here when it comes to the Commanders and the Detroit Lions, where you have Terry McLaurin and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, these two guys are some of the best two receivers in the league that's going to go toe-to-toe stat-wise. Now, Terry McLaurin, I have to say 82 receptions, 1,096 yards and 13 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 115 receptions on 1,283 yards and 12 touchdowns. Interesting to see. I cannot wait to look at these games here. Now, I'm not going to throw tight ends in there, but I am though, because tight ends are a big part of why a lot of teams win. Now, Zach Ertz won a championship with the Philadelphia Eagles. Sam Laporta is a rising star when it comes to the tight end position. The tight end position is getting younger and is getting better in the NFL. And I really like both teams. I really love the way they play the offense. I love the way that Jared Goff controls and commands an offense. Same thing for Jayden Daniels, especially being a rookie and winning your first playoff game since 2005. And Jayden Daniels getting drafted to the Commanders and changing the narrative and changing the whole aspect of the Washington Commanders. And Jared Goff, he got traded from the Rams to the Detroit Lions for Matthew Stafford, and they changed the whole culture. They changed the whole culture for these two franchises, same with Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell. Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell, they are great coaches for these two teams. Now, the Lions will host the Commanders. We all know that. And the first time in franchise history, they have been the top number one team. The top number one team. But at the end of the day, they had the Lions at 9.5 points to win this game. And when it comes to the series record, Washington Commanders lead the series record 31-16, including a 3-0 record in the playoff games at home. That's an interesting stat there. But against the spread, you know, the last meeting, not even against the spread, I'm sorry, but the last meeting that the Detroit Lions did have against the Commanders was 36-27 on September 18th, 2022 at Detroit in Ford Field. So when it comes to the Commanders' offense, they're overall seventh in the league in offense, third in rush, 17 in pass, five in scoring. Now, when it comes to the Commanders' defense, they are ranked 13th in the league. They are 30th against the rush. That's why I think the Detroit Lions have the advantage there, but they are third in the league in passing when it comes to their defense. Scoring, they're ranked 18th. Now, the Detroit Lions offense is very high powered. Like I said before, they're second overall in the league in the offense, sixth in the league when it comes to rushing, two in the league when it comes to passing. They are the number one scoring team in the NFL when it comes to their offense. Now, for the Detroit Lions defense, even with no Aiden Hutchinson there, but they do got Zadarius Smith that they did get in a trade during the trade deadline, which is a big, big move for the Detroit Lions. They are overall 20th in the league. They fifth in the league against the rush. They're 30th against the pass, where I think the Washington Commanders will have the advantage there. But when it comes to scoring, they seventh in the league. The turnover differential for both teams, the Commanders is +-1, and the Lions are +-9 for both. But players to watch: Marshawn Lattimore versus Amon-Ra St. Brown. You know he had a bad game against Mike Evans in that wild card, but it's going to be interesting to watch when they see those two. Lions players to watch, of course, Jahmyr Gibbs. We all know that in the last three games for Jahmyr Gibbs, 162.3 yards from scrimmage and scoring 6 touchdowns. While David Montgomery had a knee injury, Gibbs has been voted to the Pro Bowl in the last 2 seasons from the Alabama Star. Now, the key matchup in this game, in my personal opinion, is that the Detroit running game against Washington defense. Now, Montgomery will play, like I said before, he will play the first time this month, restoring the NFL best backfields. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery averaged 138.5 yards rushing during the regular season, and the Commanders among the league worst in the run defense, allowing 137.5 yards rushing a game. They gave up 101 yards last week to Tampa Bay, and that was with Bucky Irvin and a few others there. Now, we do have some key injuries when it comes to this game. Bobby Wagner, but he is set to play. And then you had the rookie Jordan McGee, which he'll be out for this game. The Lions starting Kevin Zeitler and Pat O'Connell. Pat O'Connell is out. I'm sorry. Kevin Zeitler and Pat O'Connell are both out for the Detroit Lions. I did say that. Now, Christian Mahogany expected to play for Zeitler, and Ennis Rackenshaw will be questionable because of a hamstring and a illness. But these two franchises met in the playoffs in the 1999 season, and the previous time they played in the postseason was 1982 and 1991. Washington went on to the Super Bowl that year. Now, coming off of a playoff now, the Washington Commanders, coming off of a playoff win in 19 years, aiming for their first NFC Championship since 1991, the Commanders have won 5 in a row. 5 in a row. In the final play of the scrimmage of regulation and overtime, Jayden Daniels becomes the 4th quarterback in NFL history to win a career playoff start. 24 of 35, 268 yards and a passing touchdown. But let's not sit here and act like we're not going to give Jared Goff his credit, because he led this offense to a high of 32 point. Now that we're not going to leave it off the hook. We're just not. We're not going to leave it off the hook with Jared Goff. Jared Goff led this offense and scored 33.2 points a game, and Gibbs ran for a TD in all 3 playoff games in last season with 34 of 35 of his career games. Now, Jared Goff is probably one of the best when it comes to throwing the football, when it comes to completion percentage, when it comes to touchdowns, when it comes to yards. And this is tough for me to pick. It's really tough for me to pick. And I'm going to pick the Detroit Lions to advance. And I think it would be a field goal. A field goal is the reason why the Detroit Lions will win. This will be a high-scoring game, in my opinion. I think both teams will be able to score and get up and down the field. But whoever has the ball in their hand last, which I think the Detroit Lions will, I'm going to pick the Detroit Lions to advance to the NFC Championship game. But let me know what y'all think in the comments, man. Let me know what y'all think. Make sure y'all comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. It is Sports Talk with Darian. Put your comments in the comments below on who's going to win this NFC Divisional round and move on to the NFC Championship. Peace.